So this was not really shocking. I'm not really surprised to see the large allocation of BTC that's going to be sold here when it comes to MicroStrategies. We're going to talk about this. Currently, Bitcoin is sitting at 59,000. I think we're going down a lot. This is going to induce a lot of fear. Let's talk about why Strategies is actually doing this. Let's go. So as I told you, $59,000, we definitely got to talk about this. In general, this is kind of scary for a lot of investors. Now, ETFs are already bleeding. You have a lot of things that are going on, up and down activities within the Middle East. We don't know if that's going to subside. We did open pretty decently when it comes to tech sector and the stock market, but we're not going to use that as a barometer. This particular allocation, as Bitcoin sits at $59,000, consolidating pretty briskly, going sideways. I think we're going to dip. I think if this actual allocation does start registering actual Bitcoin being sold, because it's just an allocation right now, but we're talking about what Strategies has actually announced. Let's go ahead and get into it. So this is what we have here. Strategies has Authorized BTC Monetization Program. This is actually going to be what they're calling the actual selling of 1.25 billion in Bitcoin. Okay, that is the nominal value of the actual Bitcoin that is going to be sold. Now, it's called the BTC Monetization Program. This is what they're calling it. So let's get into what this really is and what it's doing. All right, this is going to allow the actual sale of Bitcoin to fund its $2.5 billion USD reserve, and it's going to cover the actual dividends. And we're talking about the stretch situation, that particular preferred stock, and there's multiples, but this one in particular is giving out 11% yield essentially when it comes to these dividends. They're going to be using Bitcoin to pay this, and I already knew this was going to happen. When you set up this type of situation, and basically Stretch was used to basically add more to the coffers so they can buy more Bitcoin. Now those dividends are coming due and they don't have the money, so they're going to be selling Bitcoin to actually do this. It kind of reminds me of the XRP situation with the escrow and how XRP is, and I'm not jumping on XRP, I'm just saying this is very familiar. And when it comes to what XRP is used for, to fund, quote unquote operations. This is essentially what they're about to use Bitcoin for when it comes to Strategies, when it comes to paying dividends, things of that nature. $1.25 billion worth of BTC. This is what's allocated. Now, Saylor says Strategy remains committed to Bitcoin as its primary treasury reserve asset. So there's going to be an actual buyback along with this, kind of tethered with this, the actual dumping of the Bitcoin. Now, the 1.25 billion, and it's going to be around $1 billion. So you got a mixed bag here when it comes to this. But with that being said, this is really causing a shakeup, causing some fear. And I want to take a blast to the past. I want to play what Michael said. He was confronted about selling Bitcoin in the thresholds when it comes to Strategies, sell point, things of that nature. And I just want to go back a little bit, and I want to revisit this because it is extremely relevant. Let's go.
The concern, as you know, about Strategy itself, to the extent that there are worries within the Bitcoin community, is that, if Bitcoin continues to fall, and I know you've made the argument that you have enough cash on hand to handle this for the next 2 years, that there could be a moment at which you have to sell, not buy.
Yeah, that's an unfounded concern. The truth is our net leverage ratio is half the typical investment grade company. We've got 50 years worth of dividends in Bitcoin. We've got 2.5 years worth of dividends just in cash on our balance sheet. So we're not going to be selling. We're going to be buying Bitcoin. I expect we'll be buying Bitcoin every quarter forever.
Just so we all understand, what is the price at which this story gets much more complicated for you and therefore the rest of the Bitcoin community? I think there's a sense that given how large a player you are, if the price of Bitcoin were to fall to a place and continue to stay there for 2.5 years from now, and you were forced into a selling position, that unto itself could create a cascading problem.
Andrew, if Bitcoin falls 90% for the next 4 years, we'll refinance the debt.
Refinance where, Michael?
We'll just roll it forward. I mean, again.
But you think banks would lend to you at that point?
Yeah, because the volatility of Bitcoin is such that there's always going to be value. Look, you're at 68,000 right now. Literally has to fall to 8,000. Then we just refinance the debt. If you think it's going to zero, then we'll deal with that. But I don't think it's going to zero, and I don't think it's going to 8,000 either. But the credit risk is de minimis at this point.
So that did not age well. And here we are, at this point in time, a large amount of Bitcoin is being allocated for selling. And I will point to this as well. We're going to look at this because this is an update on the strategy stocks. It is up by 6%. I think it's around $87 pre-market. The actual stretch situation, which is a preferred stock that is giving out that 11% dividend, it's up by almost 10% as well at $81. So obviously, the shareholders really love this because they want their dividends, all right? We're getting really close to holiday season. People want their actual dividends. Money is funny right now. We got a lot of things going on with the economy, inflation, things of that nature. So they have to live up to these actual promises when it comes to these dividends. And they're going to be using Bitcoin to do it and to fund, quote unquote, business as usual. So this is interesting. So let me know what you think about this, man. It kind of reminds me of the XRP situation, how they're using it to fund the business or whatever. And I'm not jumping on XRP. I'm just saying, this is very familiar, as I said before in the video, and I want to know what you think about it. Is this going to cause a wave of fear across the board? I think so, all right? Will this catastrophically be the actual last leg to where we go to 50K? I believe so. Let me know, and I'll talk to you a little bit later.